Oh my goodness, Justin Stoddard here. I'm sitting with my friend Daniel Roberts. We just recorded a podcast in which he spoke about three major charitable organizations and how his business is set up to contribute to those every time he does business. It's really changing the way that we as consumers can think about how we go about choosing with whom we do business, as well as businesses setting it up to where they have philanthropy built into their very business. This episode has the ability to really change a lot for you and definitely expand your thinking. Thank you, Daniel, for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you.
Tune in. You're going to love this one. So the big question is this: how do those of us with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and welcome to the Think Bigger Mastermind. Hey, I'm super excited to be here today with Daniel Roberts, local real estate professional. And he's going to talk about a business model that I hope expands your thinking and the possibilities for you as a business owner, even you as a consumer. So thank you for being here today, Daniel.
Yeah,
really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, good stuff. I actually had a conversation. I've known Daniel for probably 6 months or so, maybe longer than that.
Yeah.
And just a great person. And we had a chance not too long ago to sit down and go in depth kind of on his unique business model. And I'll tell you what, I'm one, as you know, who seeks out thinking bigger. And I had that experience. I sat there and my mind was spinning on what he's doing and how this could really create a ripple effect throughout our society to make a difference in a really big way. So I'm super excited to share kind of what he's doing. So again, thanks for being here. Let's talk briefly. Obviously, you're in the real estate industry. Mm-hmm. Why did you get into real estate? Let's start with maybe that question.
That's it's kind of a funny question. I answer it a little bit differently every time. I was actually a mechanical engineer for several years, and really, I just felt it was a calling. Personally, I felt that this was something God called me to do, to get out of engineering and do something else. And it turns out my skill set tended to lie more with people than sitting behind a desk and numbers. It was something I was good at, but just an example of that, I was called the resident HR manager by my engineering manager, just because I was kind of always in people's business, seeing how everyone was doing. So really the opportunity to get into something that was much more people focused, and there's a lot more opportunity to make a difference in the world. And that's something I always just kind of felt a drive to do. And it turns out that that this was a way to do that. So
Interesting. So it wasn't just about like I love real estate or even I love people, but you felt like you wanted to have a bigger impact on society, on the world at large, and this became a portal through which you could do that.
Yeah, it started with I wanted to start writing a book, but a lot of people say they want to write a book and don't do it, and I was thinking, am I just that? Yeah. So I actually had a friend who introduced me to real estate and said, hey, this might be something you'd be good at, and kind of immediately I said, yeah, like that actually sounds like something I'd be good at and I'd like to do. So I started and I became a real estate agent.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So just to kind of cut to the chase of what happens with Daniel's business is that when you choose to work with him, he's got it set up to where there's 3 charities that at least 10% of what the commission that would normally go to him goes to one of these charities. Which is pretty cool. It's really cool, actually. It's a way for the consumer to kind of say, hey, I would love to have some of what would normally go here also support this cause. Very selfless of you as well, right? Let's talk a little bit about what those charities are.
Sure.
And maybe even bigger, the impact. Because I think, again, one of the things that I'm passionate about that is you even heard as you started listening to this broadcast is that how do those of us with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we pursue success and significance? How do we pursue, like more than just the building of our own empires? How do we also pursue impact and significance? And so, again, this isn't meant to necessarily promote Daniel's business, although he might disagree. But it's really to think bigger about a business concept that has the opportunity to impact the world at large. So let's talk about those 3 charities that
Yeah.
people have the opportunity to choose, right? Of those 3, let's go through them. What's the first one?
Okay. Well, the first one, and this is kind of significant how I got into this whole business model. Home PDX, they are a nonprofit. They work with the homeless in Portland, and their main mission statement is not to house everyone, it's not to feed everyone, it's to show one person at a time that they have value when the rest of society has said maybe they don't. So the director of Home PDX, Bruce Arnold, we've been friends for several years, and when I first got into real estate, I said, Bruce, I want to support you through what I do in real estate. And so that was my plan, to just give a portion to him. Now, how it turned out to be the other ones, and I'll take a little sidetrack and come back. I found out about an organization in Bellingham, Washington called Realize Giving. Realize Giving is, it just started 1 or 2 years ago, and right now it's in its pilot program, and it's what connects realtors and nonprofits together. Mm-hmm. So from there it went from giving just kind of behind the scenes, I wasn't going to really tell people about it. I wanted it to just kind of be a thing I did. But what this model showed me, and what I've kind of adopted as my own business model, has been, actually I'm going to get into that later. Yeah. Right now I'll just share about what the nonprofits are.
Cool.
So stay tuned. So that's what Home PDX does. The second one is...
So go back to Home PDX. So obviously, those of us that live in the Portland area, we drive around and we see homeless camps, right? Mm-hmm. In larger numbers than we've ever seen before, right? Yeah. And it's almost like, wow, how did this happen? And 2, how do we help fix it? Obviously, this, you could get into a number of political conversations about what causes this and how to improve it. But the reality is that's not the topic of our conversation today. But there's an organization out there that goes out and spends time with these people, correct? Yes. Gives them basic supplies and help, correct? Mm-hmm. And then also just spends time speaking to these people, right. Not just dropping off goodies or go give food to a food bank. All great things, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But the mission is actually to go sit with these people and help them to see something inside of themselves, right, that maybe they don't see in themselves. Yeah. So, powerful, right? Yeah, on the topic of thinking bigger, helping those that are the most vulnerable in our society, or the least, living in maybe some of the toughest situations, to go speak that to those people. Like, what a powerful concept.
Yeah, and it's all about, the age-old proverb, are you going to give a man a fish or teach a man to fish? You can put someone inside of a home, but if they don't see themselves as deserving that, they're going to be right back on the streets. Probably 8 to 9 times out of 10. It's not, the statistics aren't that great. But when you stop and show people they have value and say, what do you need? Because not everyone even realizes they want, or maybe they don't want to live in a home at that point. Mm-hmm. Maybe they just need a cup of coffee, or maybe they just need someone to say you're worth something, or the time. I mean, most people don't stop and talk to anyone who's on the streets. They keep their distance and say, I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons, but when someone takes the time and stops and says, "Hey, what's your story? Like, how can I help you?" To them, they're kind of like, "Oh, like someone actually cares about me," yeah. And that's the first step in saying, "Okay, what do you need?" And some people they can't get ID, and because they can't get ID, they can't get a job. Because they can't get a job, they can't afford a house. There's so many things that we try to just rush in and fix the problem. And what I love about Home PDX is it's starting with saying, 1, you have value, and 2, how can I help you, in long term? Because it's not just a quick fix. Mm-hmm. None of it is. It's maintaining relationships over months and even years sometimes. And the transformation that they've seen is absolutely phenomenal. These people know that they can trust and depend on them, whereas most people, even if it's good to stop and talk, but they are going to know that they're probably never going to see you again. But having a face that they can see over and over again and know they can trust is actually, it's pretty cool.
So a couple of thoughts. First is, yes, you can give a man a fish, you can teach him how to fish, or you can actually have, like, even before that, right, is to teach a man that he's worth fishing. Like, he's
yeah,
actually...
that's actually a really good way to put it.
Like, because if you don't even believe that you're worth anything, like, That's just survival. Like, why would I even want to go fish and actually provide for myself, right? And then, so a question for you from a logistics standpoint. So they go work with these people on the street. How do they go find those people? They go back to the same homeless camp? When you say that you build these relationships with people that they can trust, how do you go find these people again? Assuming that they're just living in the same tent under the same bridge? Is that?
A lot of people actually have a spot that they like to stay around, yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes it might be the exact same spot under a bridge, but there's also several places that people will typically be, and they just kind of go to different places, and over time they begin to recognize the same people, and some people will just be passing through and will leave, but when you've been doing it for months and years, you begin to see the same people over and over, and they begin to recognize, hey, this guy's going to be here at this time, and I know that I can count on that. So sometimes people just come for a cup of coffee. Sometimes they'll, on certain days they give out burritos and those kind of things. But they know that, one, there's going to be someone there that I can count on, and two, it's someone that I can actually trust and confide in, and someone that cares about me.
How does somebody learn more about this particular, do you know the website or how people can find out more about this charity?
Yeah, it's Home PDX, so it's the word home and then pdx.net.
.net, okay.
And they're also on Facebook.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if you've wanted to know how you can contribute to this this epidemic really in Portland and in other places, it's a great model to really study. I love it. I absolutely love it. So my other question for you is, you've gone out and done this work. What has that done to grow your thinking? To be out on the street with these people, speaking into them that they're worth something. How does that change your perspective on your own life?
Shows, one, that I'm pretty spoiled. I've had a really good life compared to most people. Some of these stories that people have gone through, you wouldn't believe. And sometimes it's easier to just ignore it because there's so much suffering in the world that if you try to pay attention and care about every single thing, you'll go crazy or something. It can be really heartbreaking to really be in the middle of it. So, but it also showed me that I've been extremely judgmental when I have no idea what someone's gone through. So to stop and talk to someone who looks like they might be a drug addict, maybe they are, but when you stop and listen to what got you here, and when you show them you care, it's just amazing what the things that, how strong people are really to just be alive after, having just terrible things I won't go into happen to them. So just recognizing, everyone is where they are for a reason. A lot of us, I'm really blessed to have a family that cared about me and supported me. But if I had gone through, the same kind of situation some of these people had and didn't have parents that cared, or maybe had abusive parents or whatever it might have been, I have realized that I probably would have ended up in the same place or worse. And so it's given me a lot of compassion to say, wow, these are real people. And that's the first step, recognizing this, it's a real person. It's not just some drug addict number that's a part of an epidemic. It's a real person that has encountered real problems, and they need real help. And first they need someone to show they care, because most people don't. It's just, how can we get these people off the streets because it's a problem? And I understand the thinking that it's an epidemic, but when we treat it like that, it's almost like we're calling them a disease. Right. And they know that. And they know that people think of them as this
this eyesore, right?
Yeah.
Like you're making our city ugly, right?
And so they say, you don't really care about putting me in a house. You just want me off the streets because you think it makes your city ugly. And if that's the thinking, then it's really hard to show someone that you care. It really takes going those extra steps. Awesome. So that's what I love about Home PDX, is
what a great organization. So look those guys up. That's good stuff. I'm looking forward to being a part of the organization myself. So let's talk the second charitable group, which helps really people that have had developmental challenges, right, find themselves into some sort of employment situation, right? What's the name of the organization?
So the name of the organization is Albertina Kerr. And
how do you spell that? Albertine?
Yeah, so it's, if I get this right, ALBERTINA, and then the second word is KERR.
Okay.
So hopefully I passed the spelling bee on that. So it's Albertina Kerr. and they run a program called Project Search.
Okay.
So what Project Search does is they take applicants, basically, so anyone who is developmentally or mentally challenged in one way or another, they go through a 9-month internship program. So one of them is actually at the Kaiser West Side and out in the Hillsborough, Beaverton area. And so they go through this program where they're learning job skills, they're learning how to be autonomous, they're learning how to make critical thinking, and basically all the things that they would learn on a job, they're going through in an internship program. And by the
But designed for people who have had
designed for people who
whether they're autistic or some mental illness that wouldn't allow them to plug into a typical
Right.
job training type situation.
Right. So, and it's pretty amazing, the statistics. I think it's anywhere between 80 and 90% of someone who is developmentally or mentally challenged, 80 to 90% do not have employments. They are either on the streets or with their guardian. But after they go through the Project Search program, they actually find that the statistic is reversed, and 80 to 90% of them do maintain jobs. And actually, a lot of the people, they may not interview well because they have, it's stressful enough to go through an interview when you don't have any of those challenges. But when you do, it's really difficult.
Magnified, yeah.
So, but once they're on the job, they're some of the most caring, the most dependable, the most hardworking people, and employers say, "Wow, this is actually incredible. They're the best, one of the best employees we have."
Yeah, they're not distracted by like many of the things that the rest of us are distracted by, right?
Yeah, so it's pretty incredible, and they have one of my friends, Spencer Brown, is one of the people who is kind of in charge. We meet on a somewhat regular basis, and he's told me that they're some of the most persistent people that he's ever met.
Interesting.
And when he gets down and says, "Oh, I was hoping we were going to land that job and we didn't," and they're just like, "Well, let's just try it again. Let's try it again." And they have the most positive attitudes, and all the things that employers are looking for. These people, in a sense, seem to already naturally possess, and it's so it's really amazing. And I'm pretty passionate about getting the word out and showing. We've kind of same thing. We've marginalized a part of society, and said, well, this is where they belong, or we make assumptions that really maybe aren't true, just because we make instant judgments.
I've got an uncle who is schizophrenic, and it's been interesting. If you passed him on the street, keep in mind I love my Uncle Todd tremendously. If I pass him on the street, I would probably cross the other side of the street. He actually looks scary, but you hear him talk, and there's definitely some challenges there. Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting as I've obviously been a part of his life to see the difference that employment makes for him. The state takes care of his basic needs, but the difference in his demeanor and his overall happiness is significantly greater when he's employed. Yeah. And in fact, I was just down this past weekend celebrating my grandma's 80th birthday and got to spend some time with Todd. And he spoke about the job that he's doing, very simple job, but I know the company that works for him, and how grateful they are to have someone who, again, has that's the most important thing in his life.
Yeah.
And as a result, he does a great job. And what an impact and what a joy for me to be able to see him contributing and feel satisfaction when I know he probably won't have the blessing of having a family or a life that looks like my life. Mm-hmm. He can find joy in that, and that gives me joy as well. So what a great organization. Would encourage you to look that one up if that one tugs on your heartstrings. So the third one we want to talk about is African Road. Mm-hmm. And I'm familiar with this. Have contributed to this organization, and they have really a platform to help African communities develop themselves. Right? If I'm not mistaken, they'll take somebody who is doing something great in Africa, and they simply kind of amplify that, right?
Yeah.
And help that message spread to more people. Mm-hmm. Any other details that I missed there that you'd say about African Road and the difference really that it's making there?
Yeah, so it's really a process that helps communities. Right now they're mostly in East Africa, it's a process that helps communities become self-sustainable. So they find what they call change makers, people that are already doing something amazing and are trying to raise funds or do things to help their idea grow. And they come alongside and get a hold of the story and say, hey, how can we help you with this? So sometimes it's funding with money. Sometimes it's, just saying, here's some ideas, here's some things that might work. And it's just developing a relationship. And the ultimate goal, and usually it's not just giving money to them and saying, here, let us support you. It's getting them to the point where they can become self-sustainable and really just change the communities around them. And really, African Road can essentially step out of the picture and make themselves not necessary, but they still maintain a relationship. Yeah. So one really cool example is called VICOBA. So VICOBA stands for Village Community Bank. And what happened was there were all of these women who said, we don't have, it was always about what they didn't have. But there was someone that said, well, what if instead of focusing on what we don't have, we focus on what we do have? So the women in some of these villages got together and said, okay, well, I've got a few cents here, a few cents there. So they were basically saving pennies at a time, just out of their, out of the little that they had. They saved it up and all pooled together, and over time they saved enough they could actually buy a field, and they started growing crops and raising more money, and it was, from that they could build that community bank even more. And so the idea has begun spreading to different villages, and people have begun pooling the little they have to actually create something that is pretty impressive.
How cool.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's really cool, and they're actually the ones that introduced me to this Realized Giving idea. Their office is actually right across the street from mine. And so I met them one day and then I fell in love immediately with what they did, because I have always been passionate about that kind of work. Yeah. And especially it's more than just than just giving. It's about actually finding people who are making a difference and helping them do that.
Finding your leaders, finding your influencers, those that already have good ideas.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if we bring an idea to them and say, do this, it's not their own. They're not going to treat it the same way. Whereas if they were already having something that worked, it reminds me of, one of my favorite TV shows is Shark Tank. And when you're the sharks and you're sitting up there on this, you're this panel of investors and you're looking at people that come into you. One trend that I've recognized is they're not looking to fix somebody's idea. They're looking for someone that is the right leader, that has the right idea. They simply just need some resources to scale it, right? Yeah. To reach more people, which sounds to me like what African Road is doing. They're looking for the right person with the right idea that's already working. They just need to put some more resources behind it to help more people. Right?
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of it is the perspective, and I could go off on this, I won't really, but just something to think about is most of us have grown up with the idea that Africa is kind of this area that everywhere else in the world needs to be spending their money and pouring into. And there's some ways that, yes, it's been really beneficial, but the mindset eventually needs to change to recognize Africa is actually a continent that has more resources than almost every other continent. I don't know the exact stats, but there's a lot of great things there. Yeah. And when we recognize that there's value there and partner instead of just giving, then it'll really, the poverty cycle can never be broken if there's always just stuff going in, because people expect that and see, well, I'm just, they see the money coming, they say, well, this must be how it's always going to be.
This is our lot, yeah.
But when you find someone that says, no, this person wants to make a difference and they're showing what's possible, then really I think there's going to be a day where Africa is one of the most productive continents on the planet, and we're actually going to them for resources and for products. But it's a mindset that needs to shift. Yeah. And African Road has started to see that, knowing that it's a partnership. It's not, it is in a sense a charity, but it's not just donating and putting money into it. It's a partnership thing. How can we help each other? So that's why when people go over there, it's not a service trip, it's a learning trip, because we have things to learn from that. Probably more we have more to learn from them than we think that we can teach them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating paradigm. I agree with that as well. I've heard stories, even from within my own church, of some of the progress that those people are having, and just the leadership and the light in those people. It's phenomenal.
It is.
And it's fun to see an organization that really gets that, sees that, and is working to help the people there see it, right? And really watch that change come about. So, I'm so impressed with what these charities are doing. And one of the things that I would hope that this has done for you is to recognize that there's some really great organizations out there. And number one. And number two, that whatever business you own or are a part of, whether you work for them, that there may be a way for you, whether it be through your resources or through your time, to start to contribute to where every time business is done, a really great organization benefits, right? Many of us know the example of Tom's Shoes, which became this phenomenon because people like the shoes, but they love the fact that every time they bought a pair of shoes, someone else in a less privileged part of the world got a pair of shoes, right?
Yeah.
And so it became this socially minded purchase. And I love that concept. Oftentimes we talk about millennials, and I quizzed Daniel before. He is a millennial, and sometimes millennials get a bad rap for just wanting to, be in kind of the digital world all the time, and or not having a lot of personal skills. And I'm sure the list can go on and on, right? And I'm sure you probably get tired of even being kind of classified in that group.
That's true.
But the powerful thing beyond being like the trophy generation, right? Everybody gets a trophy. Like the when you get past some of the stereotypes and some of the things that maybe don't make people love like the millennial generation, you look at the power of the ideas that the millennials are bringing to the table. That business, it's not business and then charity, but the two can be intermixed, right?
Yeah.
And be very much intertwined to where both as the business owner, there's a whole new motive and altruistic component of why you do what you do, why you want to build an empire, whatever business that you're in, is so that you can contribute back to causes that you truly believe in, right?
Yeah.
Any additional thoughts on that as
Sure.
to how that's kind of fueled you, and even how it changes the way you think about your day and the building of your own business?
Yeah, so it's really, there's the mindset that business has to be, like what you're saying, business has to be business. It's just about the transactions and all these different kind of things. But really, when you think of why you make the decisions you make, or why you work with the businesses you make, or the businesses you work with, a lot of times it's because it's someone that you know, like, or trust, or that there's certain values that you believe in or align with.
Right.
So if you show your values and say, hey, my business is actually reflective of my values, then people that have those same values are going to want to work with you. And that's what I found is I've started seeing people who believe in the mission that I'm doing. They want to work with me because of it. And I'm out to prove that giving is actually a way to become more successful, no matter what your version of success is. And it's not just money, but unfortunately we live in a society where money, in a sense, is kind of the basis of all things.
Super necessary, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. So I'm out to prove that by giving it away, it's going to result in more, not less. And one of the reasons is, so each of these nonprofits I work with, and this is kind of the Realize Giving model, why it works. Each of the nonprofits I work with, they know the more I succeed, they're going to succeed too. And so they want to send business my way.
Interesting.
So, the more business that they send to me, the more successful I am, and the more they get,
Very
the more
reciprocal.
exposure they get. Yeah. So it's really inherently it is a the tide that raises all the boats. It's not a give and take kind of thing. It's everyone
Everybody gives.
Everyone gives
And
and
everybody
everyone
receives.
takes. Yeah. So
Love it.
I'm out to prove that every business, no matter what you're doing, if you find something that you're passionate in, then that's actually going to make you more successful. People are so afraid to give money away, but it's when you look at the people who are truly successful, you'll find that there's some of the most generous people out there.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how the world works, and we've got our mind a little backwards on how we think things actually are.
I think there's this concept that you build a big empire and then you become a philanthropist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those that are the true philanthropists, I think of a gentleman by the name of John Huntsman, who's one of my great mentors, has since passed away, but built an empire. Looking at his early life when he and his wife were like starving college students,
Mm-hmm.
they were amazing philanthropists with, obviously relative to what they had at the time.
Yeah.
And then he built, an absolute empire. Now the Huntsman Cancer Center, which is one of the largest cancer centers in the world. But they started off before they got super successful of contributing, right? And
Yeah.
when you do it via percentage, you can set your life up to where, and your business up even to where it's all done, in its proper timing, right?
Right.
But you put those standards first. That hey, this is who we are, and this is who we're going to be, and as we grow and gain more success, organizations we care about are going to grow with us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an interest, let's say you're a real estate agent and you're interested in this realized giving model,
Mm-hmm.
I know we kind of alluded to that. I'm going to have you reach out to Daniel. He can give you kind of any additional details on that. And I just want to thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and sharing what you shared about these different charities and just about the concept that I know has helped my thinking to be bigger, and hopefully it has yours as well. And I look forward to hearing some more updates, and appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
Yeah, and if this would have been helpful, please, I invite you to go to iTunes or whatever podcast syndicate that you use and give us a review, and then share this out with other people. I've got such an interest in having this message get out to more people, and really it can only be done through those of you that listen. So do me the favor, comment, like, share, wherever you're seeing this, and let's get this message out. I think it would really have a ripple effect throughout the world that will be really,
Definitely.
really positive. So anyway, thanks everybody, and
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you next time. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Think Bigger Mastermind with me, your host, Justin Stoddard. Now, here's how you can show me some digital love in return. Number 1, subscribe to the show. Number 2, give me a review. And number 3, go think bigger.